Soft ground, and now coming to the first of the ditches already. Little Owl from Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. First ditch. And all over it safely. Little Owl from Wayward Lad going very steadily they are. Fairy King on the outside of Mr. Kid. Little Owl, the emphatic Timeform choice for the first running of the Timeform chase. They rate him well clear of Fairy King, Wayward Lad and Mr. Kid, who's their fourth rated horse and currently fourth, as they turn into the straight on this first circuit. Jim Wilson has won all his 3 races this season on Little Owl, coming to this clear. Little Owl from Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. Coming down to the fourth. There are 2 more plain fences before the second ditch. Little Owl in the lead from Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. Bookmakers asking for odds of 5 to 4. Little Owl from Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. Mr. Kid has taken a pretty strong hold over on the far side. Little Owl, Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. And now another ditch. That fence they just jumped will be the last on the next circuit, because of course they don't jump the ditch as the last next time round. Little Owl, Wayward Lad, Mr. Kid and Fairy King. And now to the water. Right in front of the stands, for the only time the water. Number 7, Little Owl, Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. Wayward Lad going right up on the inside of Little Owl, but Jim Wilson quickening away again on this horse, on whom he's won his 3 races this season by an aggregate of 41 lengths. Little Owl by about 4 lengths now from Wayward Lad. A gap of 2 then to Fairy King and 3 to Mr. Kid. Over on the far side and coming to another series of plain fences before number 12, which is the final ditch. This will be the 8th. Little Owl from Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid at the 8th. Little Owl, Wayward Lad, Fairy King, Mr. Kid. Coming to number 9, Little Owl from Wayward Lad, still going very well within himself, just in behind. And Fairy King and Mr. Kid. Little Owl, Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. One more plain one before the final ditch now. Little Owl, Wayward Lad, Fairy King and Mr. Kid. Oh, he's gone. Wayward Lad has gone there. Made a mistake. Unshipped Tommy Carmody. So, continuing riderless, Wayward Lad leaves Little Owl well clear as they come to the final ditch. Jumps the ditch well clear of Fairy King and Mr. Kid. And Mr. Kid hampered there by the riderless Wayward Lad. Tommy Carmody still to rise to his feet, just getting up on his knees now, and he's up and walking away. And obviously very unhappy too. Little Owl well clear now of Fairy King and Mr. Kid. Just these 3 left in the first running of the Timeform chase with 3 fences left to jump. And Little Owl and Jim Wilson bidding for their 4-timer this season now to improve their prospects in the Cheltenham Gold Cup, for which they're 3rd favourite. Coming to the 3rd last fence now in the Timeform chase. Little Owl jumps it clear of Fairy King. Mr. Kid jumps it 3rd. There's little between those 2. Mr. Kid made a mistake though. Coming down now to the 2nd last fence in the Timeform chase, and Little Owl being pursued by the riderless Wayward Lad, Fairy King some way back, and then Mr. Kid. Little Owl, 2 fences now between him and victory. Little Owl jumps it clear. Fairy King jumps it 2nd. Mr. Kid running down the fence a little bit, jumps it 3rd. And now coming down to the final fence. And Little Owl just having to jump it. Well clear of Fairy King and Mr. Kid at the final fence. Little Owl, he hit that, he belted it, but he didn't interrupt his impetus. He got away from it well. Jim looks over his right shoulder, sees no possible danger. Looking over his left shoulder is Ridley Lamb to see if Fairy King has any danger for second place, and he has none. And as they race up towards the line, preceded by the riderless Wayward Lad, Little Owl wins the first running of the Timeform chase with consummate ease, coming to the line now. And at the line, Little Owl is the winner. Coming up to be second, Fairy King. And some way behind him, the Northern Ireland challenger, the only other to finish, of course.